Okay, so now we're recording. So yesterday where we left off was we were motion tracking this shot, and I already done the part where I lay out this shot and aligned everything. Okay, so quite a number of you are still in the tracking and solving stage, and a number of you are unable to get the solve error down to what I have over here, which is 0.36. Now for this particular footage, right, we have to use the optical center and radial distortion in order to get the error down to this level. And all the tracks that you see over here are all manually tracked. None of these are detected automatically. Okay, so if you use the automatic tracking for this shot, right, I think you might end up with spending more time clearing the errors. I mean, you might get the result in the end, but I think you spend a lot of time getting rid of the bad trackers. So that is why I suggest for those of you who are still unable to get the values right or low error, please go through every single tracker and make sure that the tracker, right, are tracked dead center. All right, you do not want to have the tracker slide or give bad position, because every few frames of bad tracking, right, this will contribute to a higher tracking error. Okay, so please make sure that all the tracks that you track are perfect. Right, so that is how you get a low error result. Okay, so once you have this tracked already, the next thing we do, of course, is to mask out, create a mask and then apply the green. I think I've covered this in the previous video already. And the end result is that we want to generate a frame, okay, which is isolated. And then when we render the sequence, right, we can composite it back. Use that new sequence, okay, which we have over here. I'm using DJV to load the sequence. So this was the rendered sequence, okay, with the alpha channel. All right. So you will have to go and adjust your, okay, these are my settings. Okay, if you want to follow it, you can copy it over here in order to get a better key. And of course, you have to create a tracking mask, okay, to create a mask over it, so that we create a garbage mask over it. So I will not talk about this. Now, what I'll talk about is how do I get this airplane into the scene here. So let me just open up the track before this, track number 2, before I have any aircraft. So this is the layout that I did. Okay, first I need to bring in the aircraft, okay, so that it's lined up to the shot that I have. So it is very important that you find a track, or at least track a few points right in front of her. So let's go to motion tracking. So what I did was I find a spot right in front of her. I find this triangle that is right in front of her. Then I just track this spot. Then I use this spot as my origin. So when I go and set it as my origin, my box will appear directly in front of her. So right now, if I go to layout, I can see that right now the box is directly in front of her and it's lined up pretty nicely. You can see it very, very clearly. So if I were to put her in a vehicle, right, she will sit nicely in this position. Right, so I roughly know that this is where I should place my vehicle. Okay, so which vehicle did I use? Well, basically I use a vehicle from Paint3D. And go to Paint3D, okay, go to New, go to the library, the 3D library, and then search for a car or plane or anything like that. If you don't want to put her in the airplane, you can put her in the car. Okay, so for me, I just search for airplane, and I find this cartoony airplane, which is this one over here, right, that has some textures on it. So when I save it as save as 3D model, and for your computers, right, you only have two choices, GLB and 3MF. So you can save it as a GLB format. The GLB format, right, will be able to open up nicely in Blender. Okay, so I already done this before, so I'm going to import in the aircraft. I don't need this, what do you call it, the ground plane, and I also don't need this cube. I'm going to delete that. So I'm going to click on Import, GLB, or rather GLTF, and then here's the airplane model that I saved within my project folder, and then Import. Now when you import airplane, right, the plane is going to be very tiny, so you will have to go and rescale it. So first, you can see the airplane is right at the bottom over here, so the plane is very small. I'm going to just press G followed by Y to push the plane back a little bit. Okay, and then I want to scale it according to its own center. So I'm going to change this from pivot around the cursor to median point. Then press S and then scale it up. Okay, you can see that there is actually a route for the aircraft. So I'll just scale it up some more. Select the route, press S and then scale it up. Then press G followed by Y and then push it back until our character, right, is sitting inside. Okay, you have to be very careful, make sure your auto key is off. Otherwise, right, your plane will be moving around. So I do not want the plane to be moved around when I scale it. Okay, now I want to select the plane itself rather than the route. Then I'll just press S to scale it up until the space is big enough that she looks like she's inside. Next, I want to check that she's actually sitting inside the aircraft. And I think this looks good. Okay, the position is good. She looks like she's inside the aircraft. Now we want to actually put her inside the aircraft. Now if you take a look at the rim or the cockpit of this, from where we see this, right, she needs to be placed forward a little bit. So I'm going to select this aircraft, press G, Y, and then push it back a little bit more. And maybe I want to scale it a little bit bigger so that GZ, bring it down a little bit. So now she's got plenty of space inside the aircraft like that. So now this one looks like she's most likely sitting inside the aircraft. Okay, but right now, how do we actually put her in? Now, we already rendered this sequence out with the green screen. So we basically want to put her on a plane, project her onto a plane, and then have her sit inside. So right now, I don't need this backdrop anymore. I don't need this backdrop, so I will select the camera by clicking on the outline. Go to the camera options and under the background images and uncheck it. Okay, next I want to put an image plane inside the cockpit. So as I scrub forward, okay, I'm going to hold down to Shift and right mouse click. Now when you Shift and right mouse click, you are placing the cursor onto any geometry. You can project the cursor onto any geometry, and then this cursor object, right, will stick. Okay, so right now I place the cursor onto the seat of this 3D aircraft. And the next thing I want to create, or rather import in, is called using this tool known as import images as planes. Import images as planes. So go over to your preferences, go and search for this tool called import images as planes, and make sure you check it on. Okay, this is a very, very useful tool. So use the tool here. Now to use the tool, now we can go to File, Import Images as Planes. And since we already rendered out the green screen sequence, I already rendered this out. I called this as Pilot. Okay, I already tried to clean this as much as I can. Now there's still some frames over here. We can individually go to Photoshop to actually wipe this, clean this frame by frame. Alright, and then including these parts here if you want to. I mean, if you want to clean the sequence. So the sequence is over here, Image Sequence Pilot. Click on the first one. And in the import options, right, make sure you turn on Animate Image Sequence. Okay, and then if we scroll down, there is a material type. We want to change it to emit. Alright, so that it is not being illuminated. It's not being illuminated by the lights in the scene. It is actually producing its own illumination. All right, and I think that's pretty much all the settings that you need to use. And then you can click on Import Images as Planes. Now, in order to see the image appearing onto the scene here, we have to press Z and then turn on to rendered mode. And you can see that our character right now, she's actually sitting inside, but there's no movement at all. You can see a little bit of the picture over there. Now we need to scale this image plane up. So press S followed by Z. Okay, problem right now is if I scale it up, you can see the image is being squashed. That's not what we want. Let me undo that. I'm just going to scale it normally, like that. And notice that there is no animation. It is not playing back the animation onto this plane itself. So we're going to fix that. So go and select the plane, go to the material options. So under the alpha, there you can see over here, right now it's showing only a single image. So we do not want that. We want to change that to image sequence. And how many images? We know that our image sequence has 308 frames, so type 308. And now you can see she's sitting inside. Okay, but there's a problem. Her scale seems to be off. Okay, because we need a different kind of projection. Okay, right now the UV projection, right, or the projection is following the size of this plane. Now we do not want that. We want to use a type of projection, right, where we actually use the window of our render to fill up the size of this of herself to be projected on this plane. So to change that, we have to go again to the material properties of this plane, go under the section that says vector. All right, click on default and then change it to window. This is very important. Now watch what happens when I do that, and you can see now she suddenly looks like she's sitting inside the airplane already. Okay, so as I scrub forward, you can see she's sitting perfectly inside the aircraft. All right, there's some masking that didn't do very well in my previous one, so her head is being chopped off. Okay, and this one works very well. You can see from far she's now sitting in this cartoon aircraft. Now, to make the scene look a little bit better, and also depending on the vehicle that you're in, sometimes you might want to animate this plane. Now, no matter where I rotate this plane right now, you can see that it will always stick inside. So, and you can see if I cut the plane into the aircraft, right, part of her will disappear. Now, I think this angle looks okay, so I'm going to leave it at the angle. The only thing is, some parts of her looks to be clipping inside the vehicle, like this area here. So we can fix this by scaling up the aircraft just a little bit more. Select the aircraft and then press S, scale it a little bit. Press GZ, bring it down. Then GY, push it back a little bit, so that now she sits right inside the aircraft. We don't see any clipping over here. And it looks good. Okay, now you can see we might need to rotate our airplane a little bit. You can see that her seat is tilted a bit to an angle. So I'm going to press R, Z to rotate the aircraft. Then press G, X, push the aircraft, so that right now it is aligned perfectly to our orientation. And let's take a look at the final result. And now I see she's sitting inside the plane much better. So as long as there's a 3D plane and it's behind this 3D object, this 3D object, right, will automatically mask her out, which is excellent. Okay, we don't have to do much work for that already. Okay, so next we want to bring in a cloud environment. So I don't need this light anymore. I can select this light and delete it away. And click on your Blender kit. All right, so you all should know what is Blender kit by now. Click on the world HDRs. Okay, open up the eyes and search for clouds. And you should be able to find some free clouds. Those with a lock icon, right, means you have to pay for it. I don't want to pay for it, so I'll use I don't use Snowscape. I want to find okay, maybe this one, over the mountains clouds. Okay, resolution 2048 is good enough. Then click OK, and it's going to load the clouds for me. And then now she's up in the sky, flying her airplane. All right. So if you want to render this, you can press F12 and then see what it looks like. And right now it doesn't render it out because it's not compositing the whole scene here. If you go over to the composite, the reason why we're not seeing that is because we are not rendering the render scene. We need to create a input render sequence. Let's see. Okay, and I think we need to find an input scene. Yes, this one. Render layers. Okay, and then we need to composite this one. Okay, I want to see what the render scene looks like first, so I'm going to plug this up to the viewer. Okay, I need to press F12 to render once first. So right now I should render the scene. And this is what we should see. And let me zoom out, and yeah, so this was the single frame that was rendered. Yeah, so this is what we see over here. So right now, if we want to output this, right, we have to put it under composite. Now we are skipping all this green screen stuff. You see this is disconnected already, so we are not really doing all this. we are rendering the scene and then we are uploading it to the viewer, and also to save it out is under the composite. So I want to press F12 one more time to confirm. Yes, that's it. So if I want to render this into a video, I will render out the entire image sequence. Now, I remember we already showed you before last time, right? If you want to render this out straight into a preview movie, you can use the view, render, animation. It will render the viewport as the animation. But if you want to render at the full quality, you have to render it as an image sequence. We already set out our compositor. Okay, we can forget about this green screen, okay, because it's not being rendered out. We are rendering the scene, which is the render layers, and then we output it directly to the composite, like that. Okay, so let's do the output right now. Let's see. And I think I want to render this out as a image sequence first before I make it into a video. So I'm going to render it out as a JPEG sequence. And then create another new folder. I'm going to call this composite. Pilot, and then plain underscore, then accept. And I will just go ahead and render. Now it's playing back at 24 frames per second, which is fine. Then I'll just hit render, render animation, and then that's it. So right now it's rendering frame by frame, and it's going to take a while. Okay, so each frame is taking about, let's see, well, we're already up to frame 20 already, 21. Frame 36. Okay, maybe we'll just let this finish rendering first. We have 300 over frames, and actually it's going pretty fast, so I think we'll finish this in a few minutes. Hello. Of course, you can see the green screen work is still can be improved. Some of the frames, right, like the blue spots, can be cleaned away. Okay, and we are almost done. Okay, and the last few frames I didn't mask out her head properly, so her head got cropped off. Okay, so once we are done, I'm going to use the DJV to review the playback. So I got my DJV here, then click on open. So I'm going to search for the file. Well, actually, right, there's another way for me to preview, that is to go and look for the file itself and then just drag and drop the sequence into this open box here. So let's go to my folder. It's the composite. Okay, and let's see the first frame whether it recognizes the whole sequence. Yep, it does. So you just need to drag the first frame into the sequence and then you can just play back. Right now it is playing back at 24 frames per second. So if you want, you can change the frame rate as well. You can change it to 25 frames per second or even 50 frames per second. So you can see now it's playing a little bit faster. Now because this computer has plenty of RAM, so what you are seeing is that all these frames are being loaded into the memory. Alright, so if your computer has plenty of memory, right, you can see how smooth the playback is. Okay, let me change it back to 24. And what I really like about this DJV is that I can scroll back and forth and I can review different parts and check which frames has issues. Like for example, these areas here, I really need to clean away all these poles. And then you can see a bit of the blue markers appearing that the green screen did not remove. So this one I'll probably have to go into the individual frames and clean them up. So for this last part here, I definitely have to redo my masking and I have to re-render the image sequence. Okay, so once I'm happy with this, you can assemble this into a movie, and we already know how to do that. We can use the video editing. We can bring in add image sequence and bring in the composite. Okay, press A to select everything and add image strip, and we should be able to watch the entire sequence playing back just like what we see in the DJV sequence player. Now this time the output, I'm going to output it as a movie. So instead of an image sequence, okay, I'm going to output it as a movie. So instead of JPEG, FFmpeg video, encoding, I'm going to use MPEG-4. H.264 is the codec, container is the MPEG-4, MP4 container. So remember, containers, MOV can be a container, MOV, AVI can be a container, and then in this case, MPEG-4 is a container. So these are different movie containers. So the most common in the market right now is either MPEG-4 or QuickTime. Sometimes you still see AVIs, right? And the name of the file, very important. Okay, I'm just going to call it pilot plane underscore. I think that is fine. Let's just accept. And that's it. There's no audio for this. If you want, you can go and download a piece of audio. Okay, you can put a piece of audio and then put it down here. Okay, unfortunately, I did not animate the propeller rotating. So those of you who want to see a bit of animation, right, you can actually make the propeller spin. Okay, so maybe I try to download some free audio clips. Okay, and then see, okay, Pixabay is a good place to download some free stuff. Okay, let's hear the sound. Okay, that's the wrong plane. Let's see. Okay, this one sounds more like a house fan. Okay, prop plane. Okay, this one is good. So I'm going to download this. This is MP3, so I'm going to cut this out and put it inside my project folder. Okay, I'll save it here. Alright, and then I'll go back to my video editor. Then I'll insert in the audio. You can come over here and click on add sound, and then we're gonna search for the MP3 and then add sound strip. Okay, this sound strip is longer than we need, but we will start it right in the middle here. So now I can go back. Okay, so you can adjust volumes and stuff like that. You can key in an animation. Maybe I'll start off at a lower volume. Okay, click on the diamond star to key in the volume. So as the plane comes closer, then I'm going to increase the volume to 1. Then I'll key this again. So you can see the volume gradually from soft. Then maybe right about here, I'll do another key, and then as she disappears, I'm going to reduce the volume to 0.5 again and key that. Okay, so you can see the curve of the wave. Try some basic video editing here. Alright, so now we got audio. We also want to compress the audio. We do not want to use the full size, so we're going to use can use AAC. I'm going to use MP3 compression. That's good enough. And then now we can output the video. So render animation. So now this video, this image strip is being compressed together with the audio into a little video clip. So in a way, you don't really need to use a video editor to do that. You can actually do that entirely in Blender. So now I got my video, and it should be out here. Shot. Okay, so here's a completed video. Okay. Alright, so with that, I will end the video.